The massive alien ship appeared over New York without warning. Its dark metal surface reflected the morning sun, casting strange shadows over the city below. The world held its breath, waiting to see if this would be humanity's first contact or its last day. It turned out to be neither. Instead, it was the beginning of humanity's greatest challenge. James Reed stood before his mirror, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. At 45 years old, with graying hair and gentle eyes, he didn't look like humanity's last hope. But as Earth's newly appointed ambassador to the Galactic Council, that's exactly what he had become. Ambassador Reed, his computer announced, "Your transport arrives in 10 minutes." He took one last look at himself. The simple black suit seemed plain compared to the elaborate robes he'd seen other alien diplomats wearing in the transmissions. But Reed believed in being himself. Humanity would have to stand on its own merits. The alien ship's interior was cold, not just in temperature, but in design. Everything was metal and sharp angles, built for beings much larger than humans. Reed felt small as he walked down the corridors, following a robot guide to the council chamber. The council chamber itself was enormous. Huge seats arranged in rising tiers held creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some were massive, with thick armor-like skin. Others floated in special containers filled with strange liquids. All of them turned to stare at Reed as he entered. High Counselor Vex's voice boomed through the chamber. "So this is Earth's champion." The creature's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as it studied Reed. Each blink seemed to show more disappointment. Such a fragile form. No natural armor. No enhanced strength. Not even basic radiation resistance. Reed kept his face calm, though his heart was racing. He had known this moment would be difficult, but the open disgust in Vex's voice was worse than he'd expected. "Thank you for welcoming Earth into the galactic community," Reed said, his voice steady. "We're eager to learn from and contribute to the council." Laughter echoed through the chamber, not friendly laughter, but the kind that children use when mocking something they think is stupid. "Contribute." A massive creature to Reed's left rumbled. Its skin looked like metal, and steam escaped from vents along its neck. "What could your species possibly contribute? You can barely survive on your own planet without artificial help." Reed stood straighter. "We have much to offer. Our art, our culture, our unique way of solving problems." "Art doesn't defend planets," Vex interrupted. "Culture doesn't build starships. And your problem-solving." The High Counselor's face showed what might have been a smile, but it wasn't friendly. "We've studied your history. Your solution to most problems is to throw more bodies at them until they're solved." More laughter filled the chamber. Reed noticed only one being wasn't laughing. A small, silver-skinned creature who watched him with what seemed like interest rather than mockery. "The Council has made its decision," Vex announced. "Earth will be classified as a Category 5 civilization, a protected species." Reed's blood ran cold. He had studied the Council's rankings. Category 5 meant Earth would be protected, but he knew the truth. Category 5 planets became little more than colonies, their resources and people used however the Council wished. "We reject this classification," Reed said firmly. "Earth is capable of. Earth is capable of nothing." Vex's voice shook the chamber. "You should be grateful for our protection. Without it, you wouldn't survive a year in this galaxy. There are threats you can't imagine, dangers your fragile forms could never withstand." Reed looked around the chamber, seeing the mix of pity and contempt in alien eyes. They had already decided humanity's fate. But Reed knew something they didn't. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their bodies, but in their spirit. He straightened his tie one last time and made a silent promise. They would learn. Humanity wasn't weak. They had just never been truly tested. "We request the right to prove our worth," Reed said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Even Vex seemed surprised by the humans' continued defiance. The silver-skinned creature, who hadn't laughed, finally spoke. "Let them try, High Counselor. What harm could it do?" Vex's 4 eyes narrowed. Very well. But remember, human, you asked for this. Reed nodded, his face showing no fear. The real test was about to begin. Reed spent his first week on the council station watching and learning. The more he learned, the more worried he became. The silver-skinned creature who had spoken up for him in the council chamber found him in the station's garden area one quiet evening. "I am K," it said, sitting beside him on a bench designed for much larger beings. "You look troubled, Ambassador Reed." Reed watched a strange floating plant drift by before answering. "I've been studying the other Category 5 planets," he said quietly. "They're not being protected. They're being enslaved." Kay nodded slowly. "You see clearly for one so new to galactic politics. The mining colony on Planet Blue used to be a thriving civilization," Reed continued. "Now they just dig resources for the council. The forest people of Green Star were artists and philosophers. Now they're protected by being forced to farm food for Category 1 worlds. And yet you still challenge the council," Kay noted. "Most species accept their rating and fade away." Reed stood up, pacing the garden path. "Humanity won't fade away. We've spent our entire history being told we're too weak, too small, too fragile. But we've survived every challenge. We'll survive this one too." The station's artificial sun began to dim, creating an artificial sunset. Kay's silver skin reflected the changing light. "The council has prepared special trials for Earth," it said. "They want to make an example of you. Let them try." Reed's voice was firm. "What are these trials?" 3 challenges: physical endurance, problem solving, and combat." Kay's voice became serious. "No Category 5 species has ever survived all 3. Most don't survive the first." Reed was about to respond when a loud announcement echoed through the station. "All representatives to the main chamber. The Earth trials will begin tomorrow." The main chamber was packed when Reed arrived. High Counselor Vex stood at the center platform, looking pleased with himself. "Earth has challenged its classification," Vex announced. "As is their right, they will face the 3 trials." However, his 4 eyes fixed on Reed, "We have modified the traditional challenges. Since Earth claims to be so special, they deserve special attention." The chamber filled with murmurs. Kay, sitting in the diplomatic section, looked worried. "The first trial will be survival on the death plains of Chorus," Vex continued. "No weapons, no tools, no support. Just you, Ambassador Reed, against one of the harshest environments in the galaxy." Reed saw images appear on the chamber screens. A vast desert of black sand stretched endlessly. The air shimmered with heat, and strange lightning crackled in the purple sky. "The local temperature reaches 150 degrees, Vex said with satisfaction. "The sand is mildly radioactive. Storms can strip flesh from bone. Our strongest species lasted 3 days there. How long do you think you'll last, little human?" Reed stepped forward. The chamber went quiet, waiting for him to back down. Instead, he smiled. "When do we start?" Vex looked taken aback. "You?" "Except, of course." Reed looked around the chamber. "Humanity evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. Too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. Earth threw everything at us, and we didn't just survive. We thrived." He walked to the center of the chamber, standing before Vex. "We turned our weaknesses into strengths. Our thin skin, it lets us sweat, cooling us better than any armor. Our small size, it makes us efficient, able to survive on less. Our lack of natural weapons, it forced us to become smart, adaptable." Reed's voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "You think the death plains will break us? Humanity walked out of Earth's great deserts. We crossed oceans. We climbed mountains that could kill with a whisper. Your harsh planet doesn't scare us. It just reminds us of home." The chamber was silent. For the first time, some of the aliens looked at the human with something other than contempt. It might have been curiosity. It might even have been respect. Vex's face darkened. Tomorrow then, human. We'll see how long your brave words last in the death plains. Reed nodded and turned to leave. As he walked out, Kay fell into step beside him. That was either very brave or very foolish, Kay said quietly. Reed smiled. On Earth, we have a saying. Sometimes, they're the same thing. The transport ship's door opened, and a wave of heat hit Reed like a physical blow. The death plains of Chorus stretched before him, black sand glittering under the purple sky. Static electricity crackled in the air, making his hair stand on end. Last chance to withdraw, the transport pilot said, its metallic face showing what might have been pity. No shame in admitting the challenge is too great. Reed checked the simple survival suit they'd allowed him. Basic protection against radiation, nothing more. How long is the course? 50 miles to the checkpoint. The pilot pointed to a distant mountain, barely visible through the heat haze. Most contestants try to run it quickly before the heat kills them. The record is 2 days. Reed nodded, remembering his training. And how many survived? 3 out of 28 attempts. The pilot's mechanical eyes weird. The others, we found most of the bodies. Noted. Reed stepped onto the black sand. It crunched under his feet, already trying to seep through his boots. See you at the checkpoint. The transport lifted off, leaving him alone in the alien desert. Reed looked up at the cameras floating silently around him. The whole galaxy would be watching this trial. He could almost hear Vex's voice, waiting for the human to fail. Instead of running, Reed walked. Slowly, steadily, he picked his path across the plains. The first hour was the hardest as his body adjusted to the heat. He kept his breathing steady, letting his natural cooling system, human sweat, do its work. A massive shape moved past him, kicking up clouds of black sand. It was one of the other contestants, a being made mostly of living crystal. It was running full speed toward the mountain. "You're too slow, human," it called out as it passed. "The storms come at night." Reed kept walking. He'd studied Earth's desert peoples, learned their wisdom. The Bedouin didn't conquer the desert by fighting it. They survived by understanding it. The day grew hotter. Reed saw the crystalline being in the distance, its pace slowing. His own steps remained steady. When he sweated, he caught the moisture with a cloth, saving it for later. Every step was measured, chosen to use the least energy. The first storm came at sunset. Reed saw it approaching, a wall of purple lightning and black sand. Instead of running, he quickly dug a shallow trench, covering himself with a layer of sand. The storm raged overhead, but he remained protected, conserving his energy. When dawn came, he found the crystalline being half buried in sand, its surface scratched and cracked from the storm. It stared at him in disbelief as he helped dig it out. "Why? Why are you helping me?" it asked. "Because that's what humans do," Reed replied simply. "We're stronger together than alone." They walked together after that. Reed showed his companion how to move with less effort, how to find the path of least resistance. The crystalline being's natural armor protected them both from the worst of the heat. More storms came. More competitors passed them, running desperately for the mountain. Reed and his companion found each one that fell, helped each one that would accept it. Their group grew slowly, a testament to human endurance and cooperation. On the 4th day, they reached the checkpoint. Reed walked through the finish line, surrounded by 5 other competitors he'd helped survive. He was nowhere near first place, but he wasn't last either. In the council chamber, watching through the cameras, Kay smiled. Vex's 4 eyes narrowed in concern. "Impossible," Vex muttered. "He should have died out there." "No," Kay replied quietly. "He did what humans have always done. He adapted. He survived. And more importantly, he helped others survive too." Vex turned away from the screens, but not before Kay saw the worry in his eyes. The human hadn't just survived the death plains. He'd shown the galaxy a different kind of strength, one that Vex and the Council had never considered. In the medical bay, being treated for minor burns and radiation exposure. Reed smiled. One trial down, 2 to go. And now, he wasn't facing them alone. The space station was old, very old. Reed stood with the other contestants in its main control room, watching emergency lights flash across the panels. The council had chosen this abandoned station for their second trial. Your task is simple, the trial overseer announced. The station's reactor will overload in 3 hours. Fix it or die with it. The overseer's mechanical eyes scanned the room. And yes, you're actually on the station. The council believes real danger produces real solutions. Reed looked at his companions from the Death Plains trial. The crystalline being, who he now knew as Stone, nodded in solidarity. They had survived together once. They could do it again. The reactor core is behind those doors. The overseer continued. You have basic tools, but most systems are offline. Good luck. With that, the overseer vanished through a teleport pad, leaving them alone. The larger aliens immediately rushed to the reactor doors, trying to force them open with raw strength. Reed stayed back, studying the control panels. Not going to muscle your way in, human. One of the new contestants sneered. This one looked like a living mountain of metal and circuits. No, Reed replied calmly. I'm going to think my way in. The emergency lights told a story, but it wasn't about the reactor. Reed had studied the station's layout during preparation. The pattern of the flashing lights didn't match a reactor failure. Stone, he called to his crystalline friend. What do you see in the reactor room? Use your crystal's natural ability to see through walls. Stone pressed against the wall, its crystalline body refracting light in strange ways. The reactor, it looks fine. But there's something else. Hidden machines. They're creating false readings. Reed smiled. It's not a reactor problem. It's a computer problem. They're feeding us fake data. He turned to the control panel, his fingers flying over the keys. Humanity learned computers by breaking them, fixing them, and breaking them again. Let's see what this system is really doing. The mountain of metal laughed. While you play with computers, we'll save ourselves. It slammed against the reactor door again, making the whole station shake. Reed ignored them, diving deep into the station's code. Years of human hackers testing Earth's systems had taught him what to look for. Found it, he announced after 20 minutes. The real problem is life support. It's not failing. It's been tampered with. Someone changed its programming to shut down in 2 hours and 23 minutes. The other aliens stopped their assault on the door. How can you know this? The metal one demanded. Because humans are paranoid, Reed said, still typing. We always look for hidden threats. On Earth, our computers constantly attack each other. We learn to spot the signs. He brought up the station's true status on the main screen. The reactor is fine, but life support is compromised. Communications are blocked. And he paused, checking another system. Yes, the escape pods are locked down. This isn't a test of brute force. It's a test of observation and deduction. Stone moved to join him at the console. What do? We work together. Stone, your crystal structure can boost these weak signals. Mountain, he looked at the metal alien. Your circuits can interface directly with the hardware. The rest of us will handle the software. This is how humanity solves problems. We use everyone's strengths. For 2 hours, they worked as a team. Reed coordinated their efforts, finding ways to use each alien's unique abilities. When the station's lights finally came back on, they had done more than just solve the problem. They had completely rebuilt the life support system to work better than before. The overseer reappeared, looking surprised. You not only survived, but you improved the station's systems. Humans don't just fix problems, Reed explained. We look for ways to prevent them from happening again. It's how we progress. In the council chamber, watching the trials end, Kay turned to Vex. First survival, now innovation. Still think humans are weak. Vex's eyes narrowed. The combat trial will break them. No amount of clever thinking can overcome raw power. But his voice held a note of uncertainty. The human was proving to be far more dangerous than anyone had expected. The night before the final trial, Reed couldn't sleep. Something about the council's tests bothered him. He walked the quiet corridors of the station, his footsteps echoing in the artificial night. A soft sound caught his attention, crying. Following it, he found a small alien child huddled in a maintenance alcove. Its skin was pale blue, and it looked thin, too thin. "Are you lost?" Reed asked gently, kneeling down. The child looked up, scared. "Please don't tell the guards. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be working in the mines." "Mines?" Reed sat down beside the child. "What's your name?" "Tom." The child wiped its eyes. "That's not my real name. But they said our real names were too hard to say, so they gave us new ones." Reed's heart sank. "You're from one of the Category 5 planets, aren't you?" Tom nodded. "We used to be scholars. My parent was teaching me about the stars. Then the council came to protect us." The child's voice turned bitter. "Now we dig rare metals for them. Those who refuse disappear." A quiet voice spoke from behind them. "You should be more careful where you have such conversations." It was Kay, emerging from the shadows. Reed stood quickly, putting himself between Kay and the child. But Kay raised his hands in peace. "I've been waiting for someone to finally notice," Kay said. "Follow me, both of you. There's something you need to see." Kay led them through hidden passages to a secret room filled with old data terminals. "I've been collecting evidence for years," Kay explained, activating a screen. "The council isn't protecting anyone. They're building an empire." Images flashed across the screen. Once great civilizations reduced to labor camps. Proud species forced to serve as soldiers in the council's private armies. Entire planets stripped of resources. Every 50 years, they choose new Category 5 planets, Kay explained. They break them, use them, and when nothing's left, Kay's silver skin dimmed. They find new ones. Reed watched the images, his hands clenching into fists. "How many?" 17 civilizations in the last 1,000 years. All gone now. Kay turned to him. "Earth would have been 18. Would have been." Kay smiled slightly. "You changed things, Reed. By surviving the trials, by helping others survive, by showing a different way. You gave them hope. Look." New images appeared, security footage from the station. It showed aliens from various Category 5 planets watching Reed's trials on hidden screens, watching him survive, watching him help others, watching him succeed. "They're waiting," Kay said. "Waiting to see if humanity will do what no other species has done, stand up to the council and win." "But why?" Reed asked. "Why does the council do this?" "Fear," Tom said quietly. Both adults turned to look at the child. "My parents said the council fears anything different. They don't want species that think in new ways. They want everyone to be the same, to be controllable." Reed nodded slowly. It made sense. The council didn't fear humanity's weakness. They feared its potential for change. "The combat trial is tomorrow," Kay warned. "Vex knows you're dangerous now. He'll try to kill you." "Let him try." Reed's voice was firm. "But first, we need to show everyone the truth. Tom, how many others like you are hidden on this station?" "Hundreds. Maybe thousands. And how many would be willing to help us?" The child's eyes lit up with hope for the first time. "All of them." Reed turned to Kay. "Can you get me access to the station's main communication system?" Kay's silver skin rippled with concern. "Yes, but the combat trial will be a distraction," Reed finished. "While everyone's watching me fight, we'll show the galaxy what the council really is. We'll give them all a choice. Keep serving, or stand with Earth." Tom stood straighter. "I'll tell the others. We'll be ready." As they planned through the night, Reed thought about humanity's history. They'd faced tyrants before. They'd faced impossible odds before, and they'd won before. Tomorrow wouldn't just be about proving humanity's strength. It would be about setting the galaxy free. The combat arena was a massive circle of steel and energy shields. Reed stood at one entrance, wearing the basic combat suit the Council had provided. Around him, the stadium seats were filled with thousands of aliens from across the galaxy. "Remember the plan," Kay whispered through his hidden earpiece. "Just stay alive for 10 minutes. Tom and the others are almost ready." Reed nodded slightly, watching his opponent enter from the other side. It was a massive creature, 3 times his size, with armor like scales and huge claws. Combat drones buzzed around the arena, broadcasting every moment to the galaxy. High Counselor Vex's voice boomed through the stadium. "The final trial begins now. Victory comes only through knockout or..." He paused meaningfully. "Other means." The crowd roared as the creature charged at Reed. Instead of fighting back, Reed dodged, using his smaller size to slip past the creature's claws. The audience laughed, thinking he was running away. "Coward!" the creature roared, swinging again. "Fight back." Reed kept moving, remembering everything he knew about human combat tactics. "Why?" he asked loudly, making sure the drones could hear him. "Because the Council says I should." "Like they told you to fight their wars?" The creature hesitated for just a moment. Reed used that pause to continue speaking, his voice carrying through the arena. "How many battles have you fought for them? How many other weak species have you helped them enslave?" "Silence," Vex shouted from his viewing box. "This is combat, not conversation." But Reed kept talking, kept moving. "They told you we were weak, that we needed to be controlled. But look around you." He gestured at the arena, at the watching crowds. "Look how many chains they've put on all of us, calling it protection." The creature swung again, but slower now, its eyes showing confusion. In the stands, murmurs began to spread. "Now, Kay," Reed shouted. Suddenly, every screen in the arena changed. The combat footage disappeared, replaced by images of the Council's crimes. Thousands of witnesses saw the labor camps, the enslaved children, the destroyed civilizations. Tom's voice, brave and clear, rang through the speakers. "I am from the planet of scholars. This is what the Council did to my people." More voices joined him, each telling their story of enslavement and loss. Chaos erupted in the stands. Reed's opponent stopped fighting completely, staring at the screens in horror. "Stop this," Vex screamed. "Guards, arrest them all." But when the guards moved, something unexpected happened. Stone, Reed's crystalline friend from the earlier trials, stepped in their way. The metal being from the space station joined him. More and more aliens stood up, forming a wall between the guards and the former slaves who were now speaking out. Reed faced his opponent. "We don't have to fight. You don't have to be their weapon anymore." The creature looked at its claws, then at Reed, then at the screens still showing the Council's true nature. Slowly, it lowered its arms. "My people, we were Category 5 once too, before they made us into soldiers. Join us," Reed offered. "Help us make things right." The creature nodded, then turned to face Vex's box. Around the arena, more aliens were standing up, joining the rebellion that Earth had sparked. Vex's voice shook with rage. "You think this changes anything? We have fleets, armies, made up of the people you enslaved." Reed replied calmly. "Look around, Vex. Your soldiers are laying down their weapons. Your slaves are breaking their chains. Humanity didn't just survive your trials. We showed the galaxy how to be free." In the stands, Kay smiled as he watched former enemies embrace, as children reunited with parents, as hope replaced fear in thousands of eyes. The combat trial had become something much bigger. The first day of a new galaxy, where strength meant more than just power, and where even the smallest voice could change everything. 1 month after the combat trial, Reed stood in the same council chamber where his journey had begun. But everything was different now. The huge, imposing seats had been replaced with chairs of various sizes, making everyone equal. Where Vex's throne had once dominated, there was now a simple round table. The last of the labor camps has been freed, Stone reported, his crystal form gleaming in the chamber's light. All Category 5 planets have been given back their independence. Tom, no longer hiding in shadows, stood proudly beside his parent. They wore the traditional robes of their scholar people, finally free to embrace their culture again. And Vex? Someone asked from the crowd. Under guard, Kay answered, his silver skin bright with satisfaction, along with those council members who refused to accept the changes. They'll face trial for their crimes. Reed looked around the chamber, seeing faces that had once shown contempt, now filled with respect and friendship. The former combat champion who had refused to fight that day was now head of a peacekeeping force, using strength to protect rather than oppress. Earth has a proposal, Reed announced, standing up. We've learned much from each other these past months. Every species has unique strengths, unique ways of thinking. Instead of rating and ranking each other, we should be sharing our knowledge, helping each other grow. He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a new station, much larger than the old council building. We call it the Galactic Exchange, Reed explained, a place where all species can come to learn, to trade, to solve problems together. No more categories, no more protection, just cooperation. The chamber erupted in approval. Species that had once been enemies were now working together, building something new. But what about the threats? Someone asked. The dangers the old council claimed they were protecting us from. Reed smiled. Look around this room. When we work together, what threat could stand against us? Humanity's greatest strength was never in our bodies. It was in our ability to bring people together, to find ways to cooperate despite our differences. Tom stepped forward. My people will open our libraries again, he announced. We'll teach anyone who wants to learn. The crystal colonies will help build the new station, Stone added. One by one, representatives stood up, each offering their species unique abilities to help build this new future. Kay moved to stand beside Reed. When I first spoke up for you in this chamber, I never imagined it would lead to this. No one did, Reed replied. They thought humanity was weak because we weren't the strongest, fastest, or toughest. They never understood that our real strength comes from making connections, building bridges, finding ways to work together. He looked out at the chamber, at former enemies becoming friends, at slaves becoming leaders, at a galaxy learning to see strength in new ways. The old council feared change, Reed continued. They feared anything different. But change is how we grow. Difference is how we learn. Humanity didn't just survive their trials. We showed everyone a better way. As the meeting ended, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered around the plans for the new exchange. The former combat champion was discussing peaceful applications of battle tactics with a group of scientist species. Tom was teaching a group of young aliens the histories that had almost been lost. Reed watched it all from a quiet corner, feeling satisfied. The galaxy had needed something that humanity had learned long ago. That true strength isn't about dominance, but about bringing out the best in others. Ready to go home? Kay asked. Reed nodded. Yes, but not for long. We've got a lot of work to do. As they walked out, Reed thought about that first day in the council chamber, when they had called humanity weak. They had been so wrong. In trying to break humanity's spirit, they had instead unleashed its greatest strength, the power to unite, to inspire, to change the universe for the better. The age of categories and fear was over. The age of cooperation and hope had begun.